Welcome back to another installment of Cost of Living Mexico City. So today I'm going to chat about transportation. So the cost of transportation in Mexico City. It is one of the cheapest things in the city. It's the cheapest transportation I've ever experienced. Certainly the cheapest in any city that I've ever lived in. So buses are really cheap. They run all throughout the city, run the suburbs in the state of Mexico where I live. We've got buses running literally every couple of minutes throughout the day, especially during the week. And you can pretty much take them anywhere you want. They'll drop you off at major metro stations, major shopping malls, and they go through local neighborhoods as well. And often they are shouting, like bellowing, for whether they're leaving. I can hear one right now. So those are anywhere between 5 and 9 pesos, which is less than 50 cents. So yeah, buses are really cheap. Traffic in Mexico City is insane. It's awful, especially during the week, especially at rush hour times. And buses will stop and go along the like kind of side of the highway. So you could be sitting on a bus for a really long time, but it is a really cheap way to get around. Then you've got the metro. So the metro is 5 pesos, 25 cents. Every time you ride, it doesn't matter how many times you change, it's 5 pesos. You can buy tickets at any station, or you can buy a metro card, and that's only at certain stations, really the big major stations, and you can top those up there as well. The price of a ticket is the same whether you're using a metro card or a ticket. So if you're only visiting, I recommend buying like 10 tickets with the first time you ride, and then you can just have them to insert every time you want to ride the metro. I also forgot to mention there are like metro buses in the city. These are buses that literally have their own lane, and they run down Insurgentes, which is one of the major streets, and I believe that there's another one as well. And they literally have their own lanes, so they can obviously avoid all the traffic. That's a really good way to get around. Those are 7 pesos, I think. But they are super, super crowded often, as is the metro. Really, I mean, everywhere in Mexico City is busy, whether you take a bus, whether you're driving in a car, whether you're getting on public transportation, you are going to be squished, so be prepared. Another thing to note with metros, even though because they're one of the cheapest ways to get around, obviously they're the busiest. It's also one of the quickest ways to get around the city because of course you avoid any kind of traffic. But they are crazy busy, even on the weekends, even when it doesn't seem like there should be anyone around. Mexicans often stand by the door, so even though the metro might be empty inside, like the train is empty like towards the middle, everyone's standing by the door because they know that it's going to be difficult to get out. So you kind of have to like squeeze your way into the train and then move down into like the aisle, and then you'll have loads of space. And then when you want to get out, you'll have to like squeeze back out, elbows out, like to get back out. But it's a really, really quick way and a really, really cheap way to get around the city. So you put up with it. Another way to get around the city are Ubers. They're one of the most expensive ways to get around the city, but if you compare it to taking an Uber pretty much anywhere else, it's crazy cheap. I live about 30 minutes from like the center of the city, and it costs me less than $5 to get into the city in an Uber. So it's incredibly cheap. You can get around the city in an Uber for maybe like a 10-minute ride. It'll cost you like 45 pesos, which is just over $2. So it is a really still a cheap way to get around, but obviously you have to combat the traffic, and it's a little bit more expensive than taking public transportation. You can also take regular taxis. Regular taxis, I've found, are actually a little bit more expensive than Ubers. Maybe other people have had different experiences, but I think because I'm not Mexican and my Spanish isn't great, that probably plays a role. But I also don't like that there's not really any meters in taxis here. So if you get in a taxi, you have to like negotiate or like ask how much it's going to cost to get to that certain place. And unlike Uber drivers, taxi drivers obviously don't have like navigation on their phones or anything. So if you don't know where you're going, they probably don't either. So yeah, taxis are quite like a local thing. But by all means, like they're still incredibly cheap, and the taxi drivers are really friendly. So buses in and out of the city. So if you want to get out of Mexico City and see places anywhere in the country, there are major bus terminals throughout the city. It depends on where you're headed, and that is like how you'll decide which bus terminal to go to. But I have taken a bus from Mexico City North Bus Terminal to San Miguel de Allende, which is about 4.5 hours north, and that bus cost us 388 pesos, which is just under $20. So I thought it was a little bit expensive, but obviously, I mean, $20 to go 4.5 hours really isn't crazy. You can take a bus to Acapulco from Mexico City, and that costs, again, just under 400 pesos, so just under $20. And yeah, I mean, that's really cheap. But that's similar, that's 5 hours. So you can spend $20 to go 5 hours on a bus, or you can fly. So flying, in my opinion, from Mexico City is crazy cheap. If you compare it to flying internally in the US, I mean, you're spending far less to go similar distances. So I have flown quite a few times now from Mexico City to Cancun and back. I have friends who have flown to Oaxaca and back, and I've never spent more than $60 on a flight to Cancun. I've booked generally 2 months or more in advance, and I try to avoid booking any time like when it's going to be a Mexican holiday, because that's when it's really busy, and obviously other people are going to Cancun or going around the country. So yeah, about $60 each way. I mean, for me that just seems crazy cheap to go on vacation. So yeah, getting around Mexico, getting around Mexico City, it is amazingly cheap. I will link below the other two that I've already done for cost of living, my apartment tour and cost of living for food. Next week I'm going to talk about bills. So that'll be the last of this set. If you have any questions about living in Mexico City or about how much other things cost, let me know in the comments, and I'll do a video about that in my kind of frequently asked questions videos. So I hope you guys found this helpful, and I will see you soon. Bye!